And I'll start with, I think what, based on the biology of weight gain and weight loss, just the challenge of weight gain itself, and why the people who you work with, what they bring to you, in the different industries and worlds where you are, in terms of like, do people come to you with issues of weight gain? Is that why people are seeing you now? And maybe it gives you an opportunity to talk about your organizations and what you do, and how the discussion of weight even fits in to what you guys are up to every day and how you think about it. So let's just go one at a time. I'll start with Kristen, and then we'll move over.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
And Joe's here. He's got his camera on too.
What's up, Joe?
All right. It's really nice to meet everyone, and appreciate you having me here tonight. I will say that my nutrition background is not as extensive as the other folks that are on this call. My training background is very extensive. So I come from a kind of background of exercise physiology, coaching. I've worked with a lot of athletes, so I'm really passionate about sports performance, and essentially like how to take somebody who's already an athlete and push them even further along that journey. I'm really obsessed with sports science, and how we can use technology to figure out like where somebody is at and how much change that they're making. So I really love data, and I really love science. I was a professor for a long time before I came to ICW. I was looking for a little change of pace, and I got it here. I'm really happy working here.
I should just briefly tell everyone about ICW and what ICW does.
Yeah, I would love to. So ICW in Kendall Square, where you kind of see behind me, we operate as, a really professional personal training gym. But like at its core, ICW is a nonprofit organization that works with folks who have been previously incarcerated for, any number of things, but usually gun related, violent charges, things like that. And we basically try to bridge social capital, and give voice to folks that maybe otherwise would not have that voice or that platform, and try to connect them with folks that they might not otherwise be connected with, in a way where they are now the professional that's working with that individual. So all of our trainers have, most of them have come to with some training experience or some athleticism. In order to be a trainer, you kind of have to love being in the gym and love training yourself. But what we do is bring everybody through, a series of education, onboarding, and then get folks into positions where they can function as personal trainers, either part-time or full-time, and make it a career for themselves. So right now in our facility, we're doing about 170 sessions a week. We got big goals to try to push that up to 300 sessions per week, hopefully by the end of the year. We have another location in Dorchester, which is, a phenomenal location. We use that for mostly intake, getting new folks into the facility, getting new folks other resources that they need to. So not everyone that comes through ICW finds their career path to be personal training. They might get into, working at any one of the local businesses that we have affiliations with. They might get into truck driving, deliveries, any other type of work, potentially like service industry, food industry. So we do a lot on that aspect as well.
Yeah. It's an awesome organization that, it's like all about empowering through fitness, right? And so I guess just like briefly, while we have you, just like is weight management, weight loss, isn't that something you think about with some of the folks that you're working with at ICW, or just like how do you think about that as a trainer? What's the perspective you bring?
So folks come to us with all different training goals, and fortunate to be in a space where it's really personal training. So for folks that are on the call who have never had a personal trainer, I would like to take just a minute and kind of like demystify personal training, or maybe like take some of the like fear out of it. Sometimes like when folks first contact us, I can tell that they feel a little bit scared. They feel a little bit vulnerable. They're like, oh my God, this trainer is just gonna like kick my butt and I'm gonna not be able to escape. But that's not what personal training is all about, and it shouldn't be what it's all about. So we are in a fortunate place where every time that we meet a new client, our goal as trainers is to meet them where they're at. So if they've never touched a weight, we're not going to be doing something crazy with you and have you throwing the barbell over your head. We're going to start you out with body weight movements. And as you progress in fitness, we're going to progress in, difficulty of your training. So in terms of weight loss, I'd say probably about half of the folks that I meet with are on a weight loss journey to some extent, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, preparing for something specific. So we do get, a fair amount of folks who have that as their goal. The other folks that are coming in, they're just wanting to get generally like more fit, feel better in their body, get stronger, work on their athleticism, and things like that. So
I think one of the things we'll talk about
part.
tonight is how those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
I know Heather believes in that strongly, and so maybe I'll kick it over to Heather to just share a little bit about Trill Fit, and I know that you guys also come at it from a fitness approach too, and like how you use fitness to empower people, and would love to hear your thoughts just about reflections on sort of weight management and how that fits into what you guys do and the clients that come through and how you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to be here and to chat with you all. I think one of the most special things about Trillfit was that when we started, it was not about weight loss at all. We started because we were sick and tired of the only Black and brown people we saw in luxury fitness spaces were the folks who were cleaning the floors. And we said, we can build a diverse area to bring our community in and to support us. And we can use hip hop as the element and the vehicle to bring people together and get them moving. I think in doing that and that being the focus, it became one of our core values. And one of the biggest things that we revealed is that you can have fun working out, right? You can have fun being in community with people, that you can build this into a lifestyle, and that you can make this to be something that is hugely effective for you. So we started the business, just with a set of values and a couple of ideas. And then we built 5 signature programs, from cardio dance to Sculpt to cardio boxing to classes specifically made for children and caregivers, to a maternal program that was built by Black moms for Black moms, because there was nothing on the market that existed like that. And so we take these programs to really enrich people's lives. And what we've seen is that they come to us and they say, oh my God, I've lost 12 pounds or I've lost 20 pounds. But the reason why they've been able to achieve those goals is because they've had fun in the experience. They've made meaningful connections while they've been in class. And ultimately that keeps them coming. And so I like to focus on that element of it, which is like sort of the silver lining, which is what's going to make you work out. Right? Like, especially in a pandemic, sometimes it's really hard to get out of bed, right? Like, let us know in the chat, right? There've been a lot of good days. There've been a lot of bad days. There've been a lot of terrible things in the news. There's been a racial uprising outside every single day. Black men are getting shot. It's really depressing. And sometimes it could be really hard. And so I think when we can use something that's rooted in wellness to be ultimately a provider of joy for people, I think that's what can pull us out of it. And I think that that's ultimately what the pandemic revealed, because a lot of folks started to think about their mental health in a way that they never did before, because we're all on lockdown. All you have is yourself, your thoughts, I don't know, your boyfriend, your husband, your cousin, your dog, whatever, right? But it's like a lot of that extra stuff was stripped away. We couldn't gather the way that we used to. And I think that brought a lot up for people. So I'm so glad to be speaking about wellness today. And I'm so excited to see how packed the Zoom room is. It's awesome to be.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I appreciate, I think we'll all sort of get to the point where we're like very clear that, maybe this has started off as like a, weight management is the hook, but it's about wellness ultimately, right? And like those, one of the things that I talk about a lot with my patients is that, weight and health are not necessarily the same thing, right? And I think that like, Sue Ellen, I'd be curious to hear from you from just like a clinical perspective. Obviously, it's something different that you bring. Hear about you and your clinic, and just like the way you think about weight in the context of people's health, broadly speaking.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for having me here as well. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about weight loss or wellness in essence. So my name is Sue Ellen. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm the founder of 360 Girls and Women, which is a holistic wellness company for girls and women. I'm also a nutrition and diabetes educator at Joslin Diabetes Center. So as I founded 360 Girls and Women with the premises of, a lot of girls and women don't get the proper care that they need. And growing up as a girl and woman, we have many myths that we use to take care of ourselves, which are not necessarily true. And so the approach is holistic and it's 360, meaning that it's spiritual, mental, and physical health. So we have 4 paradigms, which is nutrition, fitness, beauty, and mental clarity. And within those 4 paradigms, we address the physical, mental, and spiritual, where nutrition is still the foundation. So every single one of our programs, nutrition is the foundation. Learning the core values of nutrition and how it incorporates beauty, how it incorporates to, being fit, and how it helps your mind, how it helps you to think better, to sleep better, and overall just spiritual health, and, wellness. So that's what makes us a little different. And so, like I said, completion 360 represents completion. We address the complete life cycle of a girl and a woman. So we actually have 4 different age groups. We have adolescents, younger women, older women, and motherhood, which is preconception and planning pregnancy and also what happens after and beyond. So we address those elements to those specific groups. And so in terms of weight loss, my goal is not to really focus on weight loss, but I do have many women that want to lose weight, especially, after having children, they want to get back to their healthy weight, which is encouraged because, your risk of certain issues and, recovery, it does make it harder when your weight's higher, right, at a higher weight. And so, like I said, 360 goes on. If someone comes to me, so wellness basically looks different for everyone. So if you're trying to have more regular periods, if you're trying to have a less painful periods, or maybe you're trying to be more fit, or try to lose weight, or maybe you're trying to sleep better, whatever complete health looks like for you, that's basically how I help women get there. So my approach is probably different from a lot of people because we do 360 care approach. And so when I see someone in the clinic, my virtual clinic, I walk through different steps, different questions, and how you're eating, what do you buy? Do you know how to read a food label? What kind of things do you have in your home? What kind of pots and pans do you cook with? How often are you active? How is your sleep? So we go through like a full, like I said, 360 evaluation. And then I ask them, what's your main focus? What's your goal for wellness? What's most important to you? And why are you motivated? So I try to tap into their motivation, and I try to use that as a key to help them, go towards whatever journey they want to go to in terms of being healthy. But weight is definitely important, and there's a lot of risk factors associated with having a higher weight. And I could talk about those later. I know there's some questions you want to ask us, but again, it's all about wellness, and weight loss is a part of it, but it's not the main recipe.
Totally. That's exactly right. Super important point to make. And I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask all 3 of you is just like maybe from your own personal experience and some of the clients or customers that you work with, just like we can get back to weight just for the purpose of this. So like how did weight gain happen for people during the pandemic? Like what have you heard from the people that you've worked with, even that you've experienced on your own, like in your own personal lives? Like Sue Ellen, you can go for it first, and then I just want to hear from anyone who wants to chime in.
So in both clinics that I work at, my virtual clinic and at the Joslin Diabetes Center, we have had an influx of women with gestational diabetes, with chronic pain, inflammation, like female issues like PCOS, insulin resistance, fibroids. And how does it happen? I think boredom, stress, not sleeping enough, being alone, anxiety, depression, like a mental wellness, right? But Heather mentioned earlier, because we're by ourselves or we're with our family, we don't have, the things that we used to do, we can't get out. And so we're just exposed to more food. And when you're under pressure and stress, you just eat more. I think there's a survey done that says a lot of people, they did a survey and they found that Americans reported weight gain. And this was due to stress eating and boredom. And 65% reported eating due to sight and smell. So even if you're not hungry, you're just eating because you smell it and you see it on TV, you see these commercials. So I think that's what triggered a lot of the weight gain. It's like stress, you're not sleeping, you see commercials on TV, smelling food, seeing food. And so, it's definitely part of it. Suicide also increased during this time. There's a rapid, increase. The CDC said I think there's a substance abuse increase by 13% according to the CDC. And, substance abuse, alcohol has calories. So a part of that weight gain is possibly due to caloric intake from alcohol, right? So people are drinking more, suicide rates are going up, people are eating more. And so the pandemic really did us in. It really did us in, so I could say it's a combination of things why people are gaining weight. But on my end, I definitely see it with my women in the clinic, because I do both women clinics and I see it in children. I have a aunt who is a pediatrician, and she says she has never seen this much diabetes or obesity in children. She says she wants to cry. It's like, it's really sad. And unfortunately, the parents, we can't say it's the parents' fault, but what are the parents to do if they're also stress eating? They're also doing the same thing. They don't have connections. They don't have maybe transportation for healthy foods. They can't get those healthy foods. A lot of it, there's, a racial, disparity with that. And so that's part of probably some of the reasons why people of color were getting COVID more and getting sick. They didn't have access to some of these things. And so, it goes back into like a circle. You don't have access to the foods. You're going to eat whatever you can get at the corner store. You can't work out. Your neighborhood is not safe enough. You can't do this, you don't have Wi-Fi at home to do exercise, so anyway, the point is that we all have different reasons why there's weight gain, but it's real. And it's not just weight gain, it's suicide, it's alcohol intake, it's just everything, mental illness. We have to address it before our new world is going to be different, right? Our new world is going to be, it is different.
For sure.
It might be a big thing to add on to what Sue Ellen is talking about. It's like when we talk about the social determinants of health, right? All of these different factors are so interconnected and have an effect on your physical well-being, right? So the zip code that you grow up in, the resources that you have around you, whether you live in a food desert or not, whether you have access to a park or not, if your neighborhood is safe enough for you to run in or not, all of these things sort of come together. But I think to Sue Ellen's broader point is the pandemic did something completely unforeseen and it was new to all of us, right? Think back to March of last year when we didn't have any information or guidance from the state or at the federal level, right? The anxiety was unparalleled. I could feel folks' nervous energy just coming into Trill Fit, and I felt like they needed us more than ever because they needed to work this out because we all had no idea what was going on. But then as a wellness practitioner, I was like, but should we be closed because we don't know what's going on? And we have been told to close. We're still trying to stay open, right? Like we're not trying to go out of business. Like what are we going to do? But the quarantine and lockdown laid bare a lot of issues that folks have been struggling with for years. And it's mental health. It's not surprising to see suicides go up. It's not surprising to see weight gain go up because these past 15 months, the world has been in shock. We've been reeling from a global pandemic. We've been reeling from racial injustice, and folks are comforting themselves and soothing themselves however they can, despite the massive isolation that they feel. And for a lot of people, that's okay. I didn't used to smoke weed every day. Now I smoke weed every day. Or it's that I'm going to drink 3 glasses of wine instead of 1 glass of wine. Or it's that I'm going to stay up 3 hours extra every night to binge watch Netflix because I don't want to think about what's happening in my mind, and then I'm going to fall asleep, right? So the quality of life that you used to have is changing in all of these different ways across these spheres in ways that you might not feel are connected. But if you're eating more, drinking more, getting less sleep, if you're alone more, if you're feeling more isolated, if you're feeling more anxious, all of those feelings work together to influence your wellness, And so I think one of the biggest things in this conversation and moving forward is to examine each of those pockets of your lives and to say, how am I doing in this area? I might be good on food, but I might be over indexing on drugs or whatever the thing could be, right? So just take that moment to do almost like a self-scan to think back to these 15 months and understand, how have you handled it? Have you handled it? Have you not?
Totally. I'm curious too for you, Heather, like in particular, because with what you guys do at Trill Fit, like how important community is for health for people, right? And like I think the power of classes and getting people together to exercise and the accountability that comes through that, the community that's built through that. Like Yeah, just like maybe anecdotal stuff from the clients that, you know, what they experienced over these past few months not having that.
Yeah, absolutely. Community is hugely important. And it was one of the biggest things that we struggled with in transitioning to digital, because we wanted to have the community be as vibrant and as exciting as what we had in person. What I can tell you is that, you know, an in-person anecdote is there are two women who come to our classes who are founding members, Dana and Nancy, two Black women. And you know, we assumed that they were best friends because they always took class together. They came together. They had a great time. They always had smiles on their faces. Come to find out, they met at Trill Fit. They met at Trill Fit and happened to work at the same place. That's how they met. And then they became best friends through going to Trill Fit together. And they both experienced a ton of success with our programming. Flipping it digitally, right? We've had similar stories where we have a girl, Charlie, who comes to class almost every day. She's in the UK and she now has like best friends that are instructors over here and other folks that she's talking to regularly. So never underestimate the power of just meeting somebody, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's through Zoom, who's going through the same thing that you're going through, right? That element of togetherness, that's a piece of your mental well-being. Having someone that you feel seen by, having someone that you feel heard by, having someone that you can talk to. You know, the chat is popping, and you know, Jennifer says, you know, she's been having
Totally. Yeah, I was gonna
depression and she's in the hospital, but like, you know, for Jennifer to have a person that she could talk about that experience with, or somebody who maybe also went through the same thing, that can do miracles and wonders for our mental health, is finding that sense of community. Because ultimately that can provide some motivation to push you forward, because there's going to be a lot of hard days, and what you really need is motivation. You don't need someone to tell you, hey, fatso, you need to lose some weight. You need someone to be like, girl, I'm in this with you. Let's do it. Let's wake up. Let's just try and see if we can do 10 minutes together. We need more affirmation and we need more encouragement. Less look like this, do it this way. More do it how it feels good. Do it in a way that's going to make you show up. Do it with somebody that makes you happy. Do it in a way that's going to make you smile.
Sure. Love that. Love that. Because not everyone has a Kristen or a Joe in their life. That's true, you know, and to like really kick their butt every day. And so, Joe, I know you had something to say. I wanted to let you chime in and introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So, you know, there was a lot that was said, and I just, first, before we get into all that, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Joseph. Just concluded 20 years of incarceration in state prison. I also did some time in BOP, the federal system. So I have a different perspective with fitness and nutrition. I just started at ICW about a few weeks ago, and I love it. You know, it's a place where, for me, it just feels just right. You know, I knew about one guy in there at ICW that was with me in prison. But for the most part, the vibe is excellent. As soon as you get in, you just connect with everybody, from the trainers, the coaches, the staff that works there, and the administrative process, and even from the clients. You know, the clients are all happy to meet anybody. You know? So it's a good environment. But regarding, you know, the pandemic specifically, I came out during the pandemic. It was different for me. You know, for me, it was no different than still being in prison, a little bit in the sense that everybody's on lockdown. So for me, lockdown is familiar to nobody socialized. That's very similar to being in prison, where people are now starting to be more isolated. That's also very similar to being in prison. So there's a lot of things that when I came home to the pandemic, that to me was, oh, well, this is very similar to being in prison. With people with nutrition and mental health, all very relative topics with being incarcerated. Those are one of the things that I saw for myself as soon as I stepped out, that a lot of people didn't know how to cope. And a lot of the things that even I did in prison, when new guys would come in, they don't know how to cope with lockdown. And we schooled them in it, like, listen, this is what you do with your time. This is what you got to figure out. Don't be on the TV all day long. Don't lay down all day long because it hurts your back. Like, you know, just breaking down all the cues that a person will need to know how to be able to manage their time on lockdown. I think with something like that, a lot of people in society could have benefited from, you know, because it was similar to a lot of people that have been incarcerated, you know, and just the world during the pandemic went through a period of incarceration. You know, as far as You know, I love the whole 360 idea. You know, I'm a wholesome fitness type of person as well, you know, where it has to incorporate the spirituality, you know, the physicality, the mental health, you know, nutrition, everything plays a part in order for a person to be wholesome, healthy. You know, you just cannot just be specific with one thing and this is not include the rest, you know. So you have to, you know, for a person that loves health and fitness, you know, you have to include everything. You know, some of the points regarding like, you know, eating well and dieting. I mean, it comes with the program and you don't do much and you're bored and you don't know what to do with yourself and you can't socialize as human beings. We are social creatures. You know, when you strip that away, we find alternatives, and a lot of those alternatives are very unhealthy. You know, it's the same thing that occurs in prison. And this is one of the coaching mechanisms that I was implemented while in there. You know, a lot of the older guys that have done time for a long time, you know, have always coached newcomers how to cope with those things and not pick up unhealthy habits. You know, so it's something that I think as coaches out here or nutrition specialists, knowing the likelihood for a lockdown may occur again, you know, just to be more aware of what can possibly occur for a person. You know, if you're helping them along and you're training them now, you know, be aware of the fact that you might go through another situation of a life. You know, so preparation is everything. You know what I'm saying? And you know, it's something that we do on the inside. You know, there's a lot much more I could say about how nutrition is applied inside prison. A lot of the things that we study with nutrition and fitness is, for the most part, disregarded in prison, and you still see some tremendous results. You know, I shared a lot of that with Kristen, and you know, I see guys barely just eat one meal a day, still get decently big and decently cut, you know, or lose tremendous weight by not doing much cardio at all, but just a light jog in the yard for about an hour every day.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. No, I mean, your perspective is amazing. Actually, you know, super valuable after being incarcerated, and like, you know, the comparison of that to like sort of the quarantine that we were all in, and like, you know, I think one of the things that's come just out of this conversation so far is like the lack of community and sort of isolation that people have been experiencing over the past few months, and just like the disruption of routine for people, right? And how important, you know, most people are used to like either getting up and going somewhere and having some structure to their day and a job and things like that. And so much of our health is sort of behavioral and sort of based off of habits, which really do drive most of our days and our lives, right? And I think that, you know, your perspective from being incarcerated and having to really think a lot about that because you didn't have that structure, right? And that's what most people were experiencing really for the past, you know, many months now. And so I wanted to, like, you know, based off of that, honestly, you know, have a bit of conversation about habit development and lifestyle change. And because I think people now, they want to get back into it, right? They're starting to think about this again. Like, it's summertime, they want to be active, they want to feel good, all those things. And you know, what is some advice that you give to people? Maybe I'll start with you, Sue Ellen, from sort of the clinical perspective of just like getting back into a healthier routine.
All right, so it's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question.
Yeah, so, you know, as far as where you were now, right, and moving into the new normal, I would say take it slowly, baby steps. If you're, some people, okay, may not be used to cooking their meals, but during COVID, they're able to cook more meals, or it could be the reverse. Some people may be more patients that I've spoken to, they're ordering out more, they're cooking less, you know, they're staying up late. So we want to establish routines, and because our bodies work better on routine and rhythm. So usually one of the tips I tell my patients or clients is that, you know, what works better for you? How do you feel when you wake up at this time? Do you feel better? When you're more energized? Or do you feel more tired? When you're more tired, do you eat less? Do you eat more? Are you able to exercise or just move if you're tired? So it just depends on each person's cycle or routine. So I tell them, first, establish your routine. You know, try to figure out, you know, what is your, well, first I would say, what is your motivation? Why do you want to establish routine? Why do you want to become healthier? And then what are you going to do about it? Are you going to contact people that are experts that are in the field to help you? Sometimes, you know, having a friend is not that easy because friends could give you wrong advice. The internet could give you wrong advice. You want to make sure that you're seeking out experts in the field to get the help that you need, because if you truly do want to lose weight for just getting general healthier, you do want to have, less pain when you wake up or more sleep, how are you going to go about that? If you're not able to do it on your own, you definitely need help. And so the second thing I would say, reach out for help if you're not able to establish those routines and get that healthy lifestyle going. See your medical providers. A lot of people during the pandemic, a lot of women, I would say, that I have counseled, they haven't been to the OBGYN in a while. They haven't got their teeth cleaned. They haven't, got regular wellness visits. So, make sure you're on top of your wellness visits. That's another biggie for me and my patients, my target audience that I deal with. Another thing is, make sure you have an accountability partner. It may not be someone, clinically, but is it a family member? Get social. If you're able to go out and socialize, start to do more social activities. We are social beings. We're not made to be locked up. And I'm so glad that, Joseph had a perspective on incarceration, because we definitely were. We were all incarcerated. And literally, if you don't have something to do, you will go crazy. If you don't have a set time to read, set time to sleep, set time to eat. I mean, we don't have to be robots and eat at the same time every day, but we need to have like a rhythm. And if our body, we don't have a rhythm, everything's chaotic. When you have kids too, I know I have a toddler and I have a school age, a little girl. And let me tell you, if you don't have a schedule and a rhythm in place, those kids will rule your life. Okay?
Totally.
They'll tell you when to get up, they'll tell you when to eat, they'll tell you what to do. But if you don't put them on a routine, you're gonna go insane. So just like pretend like, you need someone to help you, put you in check, and you may need to get the help. So I would say that would be the first few steps I mentioned. Start there. Of course, like a routine, get help, go to your regular checkups and become more social and be more active. You don't have to be active to the point that, you want to get toned or fit, because there's different type of physical activity, right? It's just for general health, for your heart, for your cardiovascular system, and whereas you want to tone up and be fit. So there's different terms that we want to.
Yeah, we'll talk. I want to get into that for sure.
Fitness.
But I love the point about establishing routine, because I think that is so much of what that's so much. I mean, so much of this is behavioral. And so,
Yes.
I was telling these guys that, we have a newborn over here in my house, and like how adamant we are about establishing routines for our kids, but how we're like terrible about doing it for ourselves. Right. And ultimately we're just big babies. Like, honestly, like we all need the same things as little kids do. And we just don't give those to ourselves most of the time. And so that's, one of the things I tell my patients all the time too, is that's what I go through, is like, what's the routine? Like, what does your day look like? How does your energy fluctuate throughout the day? So I love that. And I wanted, I know that we have, we're going to have a little bit of the discussion around sort of like food and, the nutrition piece of things, the exercise piece of things. And, we can talk, again, I want to this is brought into the conversation of wellness, broadly speaking, because I think that is definitely the view and lens through which we should be thinking about health and weight generally. But while you're still on, Sue Ellen, around the sort of the food piece of things for people, right? Like, I guess number one is like, is food the most important thing when it comes to weight loss? I'm going to ask you that point blank. And then what did, give us like top 2 or 3 things that you're talking about with patients around food for weight loss these days.
Okay. So, there is I think there's a big misconception that, I'm not getting on any of the fitness person, because I'm also fitness professional, but a lot of, what I hear from patients is like, oh, I spent 40 minutes on the treadmill and 30 minutes of jumping jacks. I did this. Like, I don't know what's going on. My weight's not budging. I'm like, okay, so what are you eating? What's going on? Tell me what your day looks like. Oh, I skip breakfast. I just drink some coffee. I get real hungry in the afternoon. I start eating like, some snacks. And then at night I eat a big meal. And then I wake up in the middle of the night, I eat more meals. I'm like, okay. So basically, to answer your question, the science around, weight gain, weight loss, most of it is nutrition driven. That's why 360 Girls and Women, we have nutrition as the base, at the foundation, and we build up from there. 70 to 80% of weight loss or weight management is nutrition, and the rest of it is like fitness or other things like hormonal imbalances and other types of things like that's going on with the body that's preventing you from losing or gaining weight. It's not just calories in, calories out. A lot of research is still going on about that. But when I worked as a bariatric dietitian, when I first started as a fresh, like new dietitian, I was like, okay, if you just cut the calories and you just do this, you lose weight. But some patients, they it's difficult for them, and so there's there's something going on. Is there some genetic factor? There's some more testing that needs to be done. And so I think, there's been documentaries done on the TV, online. I don't know what documentary was done, but they did a really good, I think it was at the Brigham that they did research study on individuals with the different metabolic rate, eat the same calories of food, and the one person gains the weight and keeps the calories on. So our bodies are very different. And so we have to treat it as such. That's why, as a dietitian, we use medical nutrition therapy to individualize our approach to each person. Every approach is not exactly the same for everyone. Someone may just need to exercise 30 minutes to lose the same amount of weight that you may need to exercise an hour for, or their calories may be different, or you may have to do, like I said, different type of testing or other, address gut issues. If you're not digesting your food and you have gut issues, that could correspond to weight gain and weight issues. And a lot of Americans have digestive issues, and a lot of digestive issues we're not addressing. And there's an article done by the New York Times. It's called Diet, Disease, and the Microbiome. And they're linking a lot of disease, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, to our gut microbiome. And so I don't want to get off the questions you asked. So you said the other question was what two food.
Give just like your top 2 or 3 things that you're really trying to drive home for people these days around nutrition for weight loss.
First is more fruits and vegetables, but definitely more vegetables. 1 out of 10 Americans are not getting the recommendation of fruits and vegetables that they need. So we're eating more fat, salt, sodium, saturated fat, salt, and sugar, right? And so how do we cut that down? We need to swap that around and move to like a plate where we're eating like almost half of it vegetables. We're not eating enough vegetables, and that's where the fiber comes in. And so one of my top advice is switch that plate around. Make sure you're eating tons of fiber, whole grains, or, and fruits and vegetables. Typically more vegetables because they're the lowest in calories. So my second advice would be first portion control, swap your nutrients around. And the second is add more vegetables than anything else. You definitely want to not follow fad diets. You want to make sure you're eating all your food groups. Any type of fad diet's going to promise you, to lose weight quickly. You definitely want to stay away from. But it's all about a balanced approach. And so cut calories from juice, alcohol, any excessive calories from sweet juice, alcohol. Try to think about in your house, where are those excess calories coming from? Because yes, like I said, nutrition is the foundation, but what do you have in your house? And some dietitians may say, okay, don't put it in your house, put ice cream in your house, because if you don't put it in the house, you're going to binge. Well, it just depends on where the person's mind is. Some people really do need to get the ice cream out of the house and then go for it when they need it, or when they have a treat, or when there's an anniversary. So, stock up on nutrient dense, low calorie foods in your refrigerator or in your pantry, fruits and vegetables, portion control, and, try to reduce the amount of saturated fat, which are fried foods, greasy foods, and salt. And your calorie intake with liquids, which are the coffee, even smoothies. Some smoothies that are made are actually high in sugar content, and excessive fructose can drive up your fats in your body, fructose intake. So you got to be careful with too much fruit. So a lot of these fruit bowls, they're 300-400 calories. They're like a lot of calories. Might as well go to, go to drive-through and get a sandwich, because you're eating tons of fruit calories. So it's just about portion control. So I think those were like my 3 or 4 different, portion control, making sure you're eating more vegetables than anything else. Those are your friend, your lowest calorie. Clean out your cupboards, kind of reorganize where your nutrients are in terms of food. There's other things, but I would say that would be somewhere to start.
I love that. All great stuff. I think, while we're on this topic, I thought I would just do a very brief snippet, based on my clinical sort of knowledge around. So weight's very complicated. So it's a very complicated topic. Physiologically, it's very complicated in terms of how we lose weight and how we keep it off. And I think most people on this call, or many of us, know that if push comes to shove, like, we can lose weight. You wouldn't eat as much, you'd exercise more, and you could lose weight. But I'm always, very adamant with my patients that I care a lot more about very slow and steady weight loss over time, because that's the weight loss that's sustainable. When you lose weight very quickly, your body compensates and your metabolism slows down very, and your appetite signals go up. And so you start to eat more food eventually again, and you're doing that on top of a lower metabolism. So you start to regain even more weight after that. And that's why people go through that cycle of up and down and up and down and up and down. And so a lot of the work that I do in my clinic is try to break that cycle for people, right? And that's a hard thing to break. But our bodies are tricky, and we are genetically wired to sort of retain weight. It had an evolutionary benefit. And so that's why even when people start, they're like, I'm out there, I'm, jogging on the treadmill for 45 minutes a day. I'm like running, walking, all that stuff. Our bodies know they will adapt to that, and they will burn less calories over time when they know that we're doing that. And so, because if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, we didn't want, if we were having to go out and, run 4 or 5 miles to go hunt our food, we had to conserve as much energy as possible while we were doing that. It wasn't advantageous to burn calories while you were doing that. And so our body adapts naturally. And so it leads me into another good discussion that I want to have with Kristen and Joseph who are here, that like, I want to talk about resistance training and strength training for health, but also for weight loss specifically, because it is, it's something that people don't think about as often in sort of the weight loss discussion. But I know, and I know you guys know how important it is in terms of just overall body composition and improving people's metabolism. And maybe, Kristen and Joseph, you can both sort of, get at that for the crowd here.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was tapping in the chat here. What was the question?
Yeah, no, I wanted to talk about resistance training specifically. I want to talk about weight training. I want to talk about the importance of using resistance training as a mechanism for weight loss. I mean, for health broadly speaking, obviously, but I think for weight loss in particular, the importance of improving people's metabolism, and how I was talking about how if you do a bunch of cardio all the time, your body will adapt and it just won't burn as many calories when you do that cardio going forward. And resistance training is one of the modalities that actually forces your body to use more energy over time because you're adding lean muscle mass. So I was just hoping that you could sort of speak about that.
Yeah, definitely would love to. And then Joe, I'll kick it over to you too. So I would just start by saying probably like if there were silver bullets to, training for weight loss, regardless of what you're doing, the number one for me would just be consistency. If you're not going to be consistent, that's just probably like the immediate first hurdle to get over. And people always ask oh, how many days a week do I need to train? Honestly, if we're talking about physical activity, that's something you should do every day. A human was made to move around. So physical activity is stuff like walking around your neighborhood, going up and down stairs, just general kind of movement. If you have a pet, bring them outside. If you've got a kid, get out there and play with them. Don't sit and look at your phone. I know you're probably exhausted, but try and get out and move around with them a little bit, and keep up with them. Physical activity goes a long way. And that's probably one thing that can get you, onto that journey. And like Sue Ellen was saying, start to build just some regularness to your training. But as far as consistency goes, just trying to get something in most days of the week is huge. If it's a 20-minute little quick workout, that's great. If you do some push-ups and sit-ups and squats in your living room, that's great. If you have one day where it's a really big workout, another day where it's a smaller workout, these are all wins. So if you are sitting on your couch thinking I don't want to do this today, my recommendation would be just try and get up, start doing it, walk out the door, put the shoes on, go down to the park, start doing some squats. I promise you will start feeling better as soon as you start breathing the air and you get a little crystal of sweat coming down your head. You're okay, I'm in it now. But as far as resistance training goes, I mean, if we wanted to go into research and stuff, we could, but 2 or 3 days a week where you're putting some form of resistance on your muscles by weights or using your own body weight, by doing a variety of different pushing movements, pull-ups if you can do them, or pull-ups with some assistance, get a friend to push you up or use a band to help pull you up. Where you're putting that kind of stress on the muscle is totally different than when you go for a walk or when you go for a jog. So what it's going to do is it's going to tell the muscle, hey, I need you to get stronger. Or if you're pushing yourself really hard and you're lifting heavy and you're doing it often, it's going to tell the muscle hey, you should get bigger. So this isn't so hard next time I do it. So resistance training has like a huge like gamut of like, okay, 1 day a week up to like 6 days a week for 2 hours if you're a bodybuilder. But anywhere in between is really incredible for people. And also it burns a lot of calories. It builds up your muscle, which also burns calories. So to me, it's a huge part of anybody's weight loss training plan.
But what about, I mean, you said like, maybe the muscles get bigger. What about people like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get big. Like what, I don't want to look like, like Joseph over there. And like, what do you say to that? Because I think
Yeah.
that is a legit concern for people. People say like, I want to look toned, but I don't want to look big. Like all these like terms that we use. And like, what do you say? What do you say to that?
My question is like, why? Like, why don't you want to look like Joseph? Why don't you want to be jacked? But I understand like everybody has their own kind of like aesthetic that they want. So really simply like for women, it's harder for us to get really big like overnight. I know there are, sometimes women come in, they're like, I put on muscle just like that. And I've met in my life maybe like 2 women that's actually true for. I could name them, my friend Christine and my friend Sarah. They put on muscle like that. But most of the other women that I've seen, they have to work really hard to like look like that bodybuilder. So sometimes the media can portray something that isn't real. It's like, a person like competing or like winning this competition, or somebody that's on that magazine, man, they have done crazy stuff to like look like that. They have dieted down, they are dehydrated, they have been training, they have been doing all this stuff. So to get to that place, it takes time. It takes so much attention to detail. Most of us, myself included, doesn't have the wherewithal to get there. So it's the kind of thing like, start trying, start pushing yourself. It's unlikely that that will happen by accident. If it did, then you might need to turn down just a little bit the weight training. But it's such a slow progression that I think it's a controllable outcome.
Totally. I think, no, go for, I just want to say that, like, I think one of the keys that I always talk about in clinic with patients, and I want to impress upon the group tonight, is like, weight is a very crude proxy for health for people in general. It's also just a very crude metric in general. Like you step on a scale and it measures your weight, but it doesn't tell you where is that weight coming from. And so ultimately, we have different ways that we think about weight for people. We think about their BMI, which is maybe a little bit better because that gets at their sort of height to weight ratio. Ultimately, if I could do this for everyone, I would stick everyone in the scanner and look at their body composition, right? Like where is the weight coming from? And so, muscle is much more condensed and more dense than fat is. So even if the scale doesn't budge, but they're doing resistance training, they may feel that their clothes are fitting very differently, and they feel a lot looser, and they feel more, and so that's why I don't like when people rely on the scale completely. I think it's important to rely on the mirror and how you feel and how your clothes fit and things like that. And so I just want to impress that upon people, that not everything on the scale is created equally. So Ellen, go for it. Sorry.
I want to say absolutely, I agree with what you just said. I tell my patients that too about the scale. It's gives you an information, but it's not your everything. And waist to hip ratio is something I also encourage, because that talks about adiposity, adipose tissue or in the abdomen or hip.
Yeah, so waist to hip is basically just measuring around your waist, sort of where your pants fit, versus measuring around your belly button and taking sort of the ratio of that. And Sue Ellen's point is just that the amount of weight, where we carry our weight, right? If we carry it around our abdomen, then that tends to be more concerning from like a health perspective.
Yes. So I always, I do this measurement when I used to see my clients individually, as private consultation. I do that measurement with them, and I say, if you're losing weight, that's fine, but let's focus on where the fat is being distributed, because as you get older, especially women, their metabolism is slower than men, and so research has been done that visceral fat, which is fat around the organs, increase with women more so than men, and decrease a lot with women, especially postmenopausal. You have a lot of that. That's why the risk of heart disease, cancer, and all these things also increase. So it's really important to, make sure that we're being active. And to Christine's point, I really want to say that yes, Christine, Kristen, right? We are made to move. When you ask how much activity we should do, we should be active every day. Like she says, our bodies were actually meant to move. Now, it depends on the type. Was it like walking? Is it running? Is it, resistance? And to her point, resistance training, a woman should incorporate that as well, because, or, everyone, but women, because I deal mainly with women, girls and women, because again, muscles are more metabolically active, right? And so you need to build muscle as you get older, because your metabolism slows down. So to slow that rate down, you want to make sure that you are toning your body up and you are incorporating resistance training. At least, I think the physical activity guidelines of America says at least 2 to 3 times a week. And more women, women probably need more, depending on where you are in the life cycle. If you're a child, you're adult, you're postmenopausal.
Totally.
But yes, that's all I wanted to say. Is that
No, I love that. I love that. And Joseph, I want to get you back in, because not everyone has the chance to come work with you, right? And at ICW, although I'd love to give them all a chance to come work with you. But if for people on the call right now who are like, all right, like I get this resistance training thing, I need to I need to not just walk every day and like do some stuff, either with body weight or bands, stuff like that. What would you tell people, just like, even just if they're just starting with like the bare essentials, where would they start?
I mean, first, I also like to say, not only is it good just to, burn fat, but it's also really healthy to the joints if you do a little bit of resistance training, because the more you build muscle, the healthier your joints are. And the older we get, I'm in my 40s, I feel a lot of wear and tear, and that's just because I had a very active lifestyle as a child, so me staying physically active in the gym with weights and calisthenics, I feel better with my joints. I feel better with my movement. So it helps in that arena as well. That's something to consider, not just talking about weight loss, regarding adipose tissue, but overall, when it comes to just basic, getting into the gym generally, my thing is I want you to feel comfortable with whatever you need to do in the gym. Whether it's a little bit of calisthenics, which I'm a firm believer that I love calis all day. That's just because of my prison background. But when it also comes to weight, I don't want to just throw them under something that I know they cannot lift. I want to gradually build them up. And building muscle does take time, and genetics play a big part of it. Diet plays a part of it. But I also think it's our relationship with food, how we look at food in general. You know what I'm saying? That also plays a big part that I don't think nobody really talks about, And this is going to the point earlier when Sue Ellen was speaking, is that I've seen a lot of men in prison have a different relationship with food, where they ate maybe 3 big meals a day and look like they're ready to step on the stage and pose for a picture, or, men might eat 5 meals a day and do so many workouts out of the day and lose so much adipose tissue buildup that it's just remarkable. But it's all about how people choose to relate themselves with food, and not so much as digging into, oh, this is this many calories or whatever, because that could be very consuming. And when you start to calculate all that stresses a person out. And if you're stressed out about counting your calories and thinking about what you got to eat day in and day out, that's developing a really negative relationship with food. So you have to tone it down and say, okay, what is the original relationship with food? It's something that a math teacher told me. What was your original relationship with math? If you had a bad experience, you're never going to like math. So it's almost like food, but a lot of people love food more or less, but it's really, what is that initial relationship,
Totally.
So that's just, yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. It's so important. I mean, the relationship with food, I mean, that gets into the whole discussion around that. Obviously, I think we should, I mean, it sounds like next discussion for sure. I think that in my clinic too, right? Like, there's no way I can do my job effectively around medical weight management for people if I don't talk about their relationship with food, right? Like, it's built into the work. It has to be part of the work, because it's so clearly, prevalent in everyone's issue when they're talking about weight management and their health. I think that, one of the points I'll make here is just for the purposes of weight loss, just generally speaking, totally. Food is the key factor to think about first, right? Like, ultimately, like, that has to be sort of the base in terms of weight loss, right? For people to lose weight, they have to think about their relationship with food. the quality of the food they're eating, so the dietary pattern, where the food, where those calories are actually coming from. And I agree with you, like, you know, it's not about counting calories, it's not about stressing out about that, but like the quality of what they're eating drives a lot of it. When it comes to actually maintaining that weight loss, however, most research shows that exercise is actually the critical piece of maintaining weight loss. Because ultimately people, when they lose weight, yeah, they're gonna have to ultimately eat a little bit less food than they usually do, but usually they're not gonna maintain that forever. And ultimately they'll start eating more again. And so exercise provides that buffer for them, right? They provide some regulation of their metabolism and how much they lose. And so I think, you know, I just want to make that point that exercise is actually a critical piece of it. And I know that you guys believe that over there. And I want to ask Heather too, because I know we're talking a little bit about the gym, and people are like, whoa, I'm not all about these barbells and these dumbbells people are swinging around, like, but it doesn't have, even resistance training, right? Like, it doesn't have to just be about doing weights in a gym. And so, you know, Heather knows about that, and I want her to chime in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have an entire class format that's called Sculpt, and it's a full body toning program where we work arms, abs, butt, legs, the whole body. And when we pivoted in the pandemic, we assumed that nobody had anything, right? Trillfit is an all levels class. We welcome everybody. Everyone belongs there. We're like, not everyone has a gym in their building. Not everyone lives in a luxury facility. Not everyone has weights. And so we restyled our class to not use any weights or resistant bands at all. We built new exercises so that folks could still feel that resistance from their own body weight versus having to use tools. And we also made it really accessible for folks. We were like, if you don't have weights, but you have cans of beans, grab them. If you have a bottle of wine, grab it, right? If you have a towel, hold it taut in front of you so you can feel the resistance with your chest, right? So what we always try to do is to meet people where they are. Gyms can be really intimidating to folks. If you've been homebound for the past 2 years, let alone 15 months, right? Like, it might be hard for you to take that step into a place where others feel comfort. And so we do our best to make an accessible space. And when we come into your living rooms from a digital perspective, we try to make it as easy as possible so that whether you're there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or the full hour, you're getting an incredible workout and you're feeling better than you did when you started. And you're getting stronger as you go. And the classes are evolving with you as well.
Love that. And I think, you speak about the importance of how important the community element of it is for people to come together and actually practice fitness together, and how, I don't know if has it been harder for people to follow along digitally? I'd be curious to
I
hear.
don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I think it's been pretty seamless, to be honest. And the same accomplishments that people would get excited about in the studio, where it's like, I did my first double today, meaning I did 2 back-to-back classes. I pushed myself before I could only do 1 class. People are still having that excitement with the digital schedule because it mimics an in-person experience, right? So people are still talking to each other. People are still motivating each other. People are still like, oh, girl, I'm going to class at noon. When are you coming? Oh, I was going to do the 6:45, but actually, let me move my calendar so I can do noon with you, right? People are still building that community because ultimately, whether you're physically in the same space with somebody, and I will say there's no mistaking it. There's a clear difference. It is so much better to be in person with people. But we built things into the programming digitally so that people could still feel that. We always do a check-in in the beginning of the class. Our folks who sign up for our personal training and our boot camp programs are the closest to what ICW does. Those have additional community building elements where we'll put everyone together on a WhatsApp group, or everyone gets their own Slack channel. So they have a way to communicate with each other, and they're checking in constantly. How did you feel this week? What are you doing here? I'm having struggles with this thing. Like, have you ever experienced that? And it's just providing a way for folks to communicate with each other and really just talk to each other through these different moments.
Love it. Love it. And I just wanted to answer, Janet put a question in the chat that I want to touch on around, toning it up after losing weight. And I think that is an issue that oftentimes, especially if people lose weight kind of quickly, oftentimes that weight is coming from what we call fat or adipose tissue, and it's also coming from muscle a lot of times. And so I think that's one of the things that, one of the reasons we talk about the importance of having sort of a comprehensive plan for health and weight loss that involves, the resistance training piece of it, is so that you're doing your best to not lose muscle at the same time that you're losing fat tissue. And like that is a sort of a tough line to thread a lot of the time for people. But I think that that's why like we can focus on, you know, the dietary piece has to be the core, especially for the weight loss part, but building the habits around exercise and around resistance training in particular is so critical. Sue Ellen, do you want to chime in
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, so to your point, definitely you're correct that if you lose weight too quickly, you're going to lose muscle with that. And what that does, it sets you up for weight cycling, you know, and also it sets you up for slow metabolism. Because again, as we spoke earlier, resistant training, it helps, with your metabolism, you're building and you're toning those muscles, you're strengthening those joints in your body overall. And so usually when I talk with my patients, I say, the research does say 1 to 2 pounds every week, but that is a little different for some individuals. I've dealt with people who are morbidly obese where 1 to 2 pounds is not accurate. They may need like 5 or 10 pounds a week. It's very, very different for everyone, but typically it's still weight loss, and you could calculate the amount of weight loss based on the person's weight. But for sure, if the nutrition is not there, if you're taking out major nutrients, like you're just taking out carbs, you're just not eating, grains, or you're just, eating too much protein and not enough carbs. Remember, carbs fuel your brain. They're the main fuel for your brain and red blood cells. So if you're working out, you're taking away carbs, you're working out inefficiently. So you got to get that diet right. And usually what people say is that abs are made in the kitchen, right? So I'm not trying to say everyone needs abs. For me, I had children. I didn't necessarily need abs. I don't need to have abs to feel fit or to feel healthy. It's the overall health, right? But you definitely have to focus nutrition first. And to Dr. Rich Joseph's point, for those who have lost weight, research definitely shows that to maintain that weight loss, you have to exercise. It'll come back. You have to be active. So I love the programs that Kristen, Heather, Joseph has about fitness, because I'm all for it. You definitely need the fitness piece of it. But again, if the nutrition part is not there, then it's not going to work. You're going to beat yourself up. It has to come together. And if the relationship with food, as Joseph said, what's the relationship with food? What's your relationship with health? What's your motivation to be well and to lose the weight? If you need to lose weight, what is that motivation? Because we can't say, which I've heard some professionals in my field say, that, oh, you've gained weight, it's okay, don't beat yourself up. And right, we don't want you to beat yourself up about weight gain, but what is that weight gain doing to your overall health? Is it making you breathe harder? Are you able to bend down and tie your shoes or run around with your kids? Because I've had patients say, I just need to be able to tie my son's shoes without breathing hard. I want to be able to run around. And women tell me I need to be able to walk so my thighs aren't rubbing together and I get rashes on my legs. I want to lose weight because of that. So we shouldn't put a stigma on weight loss, which I've seen in the social media that people are saying you shouldn't lose weight. There's no stigma to lose weight. If patients come to me and want to lose weight, I'm all on board, as long as you're in the right mind frame and it's for a good reason and it's for your overall health. I'm going to help you to lose weight. That's what I'm here for. As a provider, we have to do that. So just to kind of throw that out there. I didn't want to piggyback on that, but weight loss is not a bad thing, and so
right.
stigmatizing that.
And I would also say one of the biggest stigmas still out there is people who have extra weight and who are overweight and obese. It's one of the groups that we regularly stigmatize in society, and I think that it should be named. And I think even in the medical industry, oftentimes people don't get this issue doesn't get addressed for people because it just isn't brought up by their primary care doctors and things like that. And so that's a lot of what I deal with. But I think, I'd be curious to hear from, Heather in particular and just around maybe just body image generally. And I think that, because it's different, right? Like different groups, different ethnicities, different races, different backgrounds, they all have different, it's very clear, the research shows that a BMI and in sort of a white population is not the same as BMI in a Black population. People carry their weight differently, and so how important it is to think about body image generally and have a positive view on body image and not just sort of shame people around weight and weight loss.
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. And just to share with this audience, my BMI puts me into the obese category, and I'm a fitness instructor. I'm literally in the best shape of my life. Check out my DMs. But it's not something that was built with Black people in mind, right? And so for us, something that we tackle at Trillfit is body image constantly. And I think one of the things that is so special about us is our team is 96% Black. So for women who had previous barriers to working out where they're like, I don't know if I could go in a bonnet. You can do that here, it's fine. Women in hijabs, I don't know if I feel comfortable in this space. Will they think I'm weird? No, you can do that at Trillfit. And we don't realize that within this structure of white supremacy, we have been sold this image that to be healthy means to be skinny and white, and that if you don't look that way, you're not healthy, and you're doomed to die early of diabetes and high cholesterol and high blood pressure and all of this stuff. And guess what the picture they paint that person to look like is? It's usually a Black or brown person. And life doesn't have to be that way, right? And so I think the more that we see companies like ICW spring up, more companies like Trillfit spring up that are showing you what health can look like, what wellness can look like and feel like for people of color, I think that's so important, because right now, capitalism is too dependent on the money that we spend on Coca-Cola and, you know, red drink and Kool-Aid from a bodega versus investing in our health. And we need to start making that shift on a community level so that we can bring broader change, is what I believe.
Love that. Such a powerful message. And I think, you know, definitely that's what I was trying to drive at with my question, because I think that, you know, we have this image of what it looks like to be healthy in society. And like, even if we're not cognizant of what that image is every day, it's being sold to us in all the media that we see and what we're bombarded with every day. And I think it's important to recognize that, like, you know, health looks different in a variety of forms for a variety of different people. I think, you know, as a physician, I think it's obviously important to get checked up and make sure that, like, you know, health is not posing a risk to, weight is not posing a risk to your health. But you know, there's been plenty of studies actually showing that people who fall into higher BMI categories are actually metabolically healthy. And sometimes people who are in these, you know, low BMI categories and actually, like, you know, normal weight actually have issues with their metabolic disease. They have diabetes, they have high blood pressure. So it's weight and health are not the same thing. And I think I want to make that point very clear to people, that just because someone is overweight does not mean that they're not healthy. And so I think, you know, it's really important to understand that view. Sue Ellen, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, so because I come from different angles, I've worked in both industries, like, you know, bariatric weight loss and somewhat weight neutral. I'm kind of, I have input on both ends. So as far as, you know, BMI, yes, BMI was based on, you know, Caucasian women, I believe, and doesn't take into the consideration of other ethnicities around us. However, that's what the medical industry uses to categorize health. And so that's why I would say, let's put another method in. Let's put the waist to hip ratio in, because we need to do that. We need to do abdominal circumferences. We need to check that out, because no matter what the BMI says, where are you holding that fat? Because research shows if you're having your abdomen is large, men or women, you're high risk for diabetes,
right,
for heart disease, which is the #1 killer, cancer. You're high risk for all these things. So we cannot negate the fact that weight has a correlation with your health. However, we don't want to make weight the only picture, right? Because like Heather said, BMI is not the only factor. Let's look at your lipid profile. Let's look at your blood sugar. Let's look at your overall health, how active you are. Let's look at your overall diet. What are you eating? You know, how much times of the day are you drinking alcohol? Let's look at everything, and let's put that into its individual category with that particular person. But we cannot ignore the fact that weight is a factor. It is. And so so it would be neglect if a patient came to me and I saw that, you know, I'm seeing her for several weeks and her weight keeps going up 5 pounds each month or a few months, and I don't say anything about it. I have to mention it. The other is reverse, is that the patient comes to me and she's losing weight dramatically, losing weight. I don't say anything about it, or I praise her for that. Like, we have to have a balance. So there's something called, you know, health at every weight, or something like that. And so healthy at every weight. So I don't know if you can be really healthy at every weight. Like, you really can't be healthy at every weight. You can't tell me that a 500-pound person is healthy and a person whose BMI is 15, who's severely underweight, is healthy. So you can't be healthy at every weight. That I don't understand that. If someone can clarify that, but I'm not saying that there's one weight for every person. There's just health. It's just overall health, but we do have to consider weight as part of it. But again, like other people on this call has said, that you could be in the best shape of your life at BMI of 30, because maybe your BMI of 35 will put you more at risk for disease, heart disease and cancer, which our Black community is dying. They're a higher risk of dying of heart disease, cancer. I just did a paper with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and we spoke of, I studied women. Women are a higher risk for many illnesses compared to white women. And all of it, like I said, is not just one factor. It's access to care and things like that. But it's not taking care of yourself. We're high risk for high blood pressure. Okay, we have to start talking about the foods we're eating, and how we could reduce sodium and be more active to bring that blood pressure down. And losing weight reduces your risk of heart disease, the #1 killer in the United States. That is the #1 killer. And the industry is making money, food industry is making money of salty, fatty foods, and we're just grubbing on it. And I'm not saying that, special occasions, you can't take your family out and they have like a burger or something, or, veggie burger, whatever burger you want to eat. But the point is that, where is that fine line? Because yes, weight is healthy, but our society is dying, and people of color are dying faster of these diseases.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point, and I think it brings up that there's a tension, right? Like there is a whole movement towards sort of like body image and body acceptance, which I think is great in many respects, and it's empowering. And then there's sort of like your perspective, and often my perspective as a clinician, where we see the downside of people who have excess weight, and we see that every day in clinic, right? And so I think that those two things are hard to square together sometimes. I think it's important to recognize that both have truth to them, and like we have to take a balanced approach, right? Which is why, like I'm biased in the sense, like, as I was a trainer for a long time, and I was kick it back to Kristen and Joseph, which is why I'm biased about, and I mean, what Heather does too, like I'm biased about exercise, because I'm like, let's make people feel good. Like that is so important as like a gateway for people to think about their health and just get invested in their health, and just, identity, so their identity is aligned with being a healthy person, not necessarily being a person who's lost weight, if that makes sense. And I don't know if like you guys can speak to that based off of the clients that you've worked with at ICW, of like, how what you do for them like empowers them as people.
Yeah, so again, I just started at ICW. I've just been there a few weeks, but I have trained people over, I want to say about a good 5-6 years. And what I found that produced the best results when it comes to, either gaining weight or losing weight for most people is making the exercise fun. It's providing something for somebody to be so stimulated, and it can be like, man, this was really fun. It really didn't stress me out. And they come back for more. And the more they come back, they want to turn it up a notch. And most of the times, I allow them to do that for themselves. I see the progress, and I'm like, man, you're doing really good. You want to turn it up a notch? I inspire them with it, and they're like, oh, man, yeah, let's go. So it's really on them. I just try to create a plan for them that's just going to make them feel so inspired after that first workout, make it a good experience, so that the next time they're like, man, that really didn't stress me out. I felt really good. I got a good sweat. Some people don't got good pulse, so they don't sweat, but nonetheless, their heart rate went up. They breathed really well, and they felt good after the exercise. And they're not too sore the next day. And that's I think that's also important too, where you could tweak an exercise where it doesn't make a person feel too sore, because that could be a game changer for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do it the right way, they keep coming back, and they're really inspired by it. That's my personal take on it.
No, I love that. Kristen, you have anything to add to that? And then I'll sort of wrap us up. I know we're getting close to 8:30.
Yeah, I would love to. So I know that I'm the kind of the also fitness person on this call, but I work on the side actually as a nutrition consultant, and I will say that when it comes to fitness improvement, I'm biased towards fitness, and when it comes to gaining muscle, I'm biased towards fitness and lifting, because you can't do those things without putting some pressure on the body. But on the other side, when it comes to weight loss, I'm definitely biased towards nutrition. And the approach I usually take with people is first start eating healthier, everything that we've been talking about on this call today. Because yeah, I mean, if you go out to eat at McDonald's, it's just so sneaky. I like how quickly the calories come up, because it's all hidden in there. It all tastes good. And even Sue Ellen was saying, like, smoothies are tricky. So there could be ice cream in there, like you don't even know, and you've just eaten like 1,100 calories. So, but then when it comes to weight loss, the way that I like to treat it with my clients is, this isn't a lifestyle. We're gonna attack this. We're gonna do it a little bit at a time. We're gonna drop your calories down a little bit. Once you're eating healthy and you feel good, then we're gonna drop the calories down a little bit, see how you go. Drop them down a little bit more, see how you go. Drop them down a little bit more, see how you go. But then when you get down here at the bottom, and you're like, oh, I'm eating like 1,000 calories a day, this sucks. All right, once we get here, we're gonna hold this for not very long, maybe 2 weeks, and then we're slowly gonna work our way back up, because this like dieting is definitely gonna help you lose weight, but a lot of folks tend to get stuck at their lowest. And they're like, well, now I can only eat this much, I'm gonna gain the weight back. But working with a professional, being like, you know, just diligent about it, and being patient and bringing the calories back up, a lot of times you'll see good things happen. Like Sue was saying, your gut's going to get healthier, your metabolism will start to get right when you bring the calories back up, and you won't gain that weight back. But if you come down, and then you just like abandon it and spring way back up, that's when you can have the weight gain. So
Oh, I appreciate your perspective. Again, like, as you guys can all tell from this chat, like, this is a complicated issue. It's complicated physiologically, it's complicated psychologically, it's complicated based on people's circumstances and society, and like all the different, you know, facets of society come together and, you know, dictate our health outcomes in many ways, right? And some of which we have control over and some of which we don't. I think, you know, some of my bigger take home from this call is like, number one, start with your why. Like, why is this important to you? Like, what is sort of the identity that you're trying to fulfill by being a healthier person, and like really cling on to that and make that the driving force that's going to keep you motivated day in and day out, because it does take patience and it does take an element of discipline, honestly, right? We live in an environment that's wired against our health in many ways, and so we do have to bring discipline to staying healthy. And you know, one of the things I would say is that oftentimes, you know, hopefully this conversation has made the discussion on weight management, weight loss feel more empowering for people. I think that the discussions around weight loss often feel very disempowering for people. It feels like a drag. It feels like a punishment for people. And I think that hopefully a take home for people from this is that it doesn't have to be that way. If you sort of broaden the lens and think about it through more of a holistic wellness perspective, that's a bit more empowering and proactive for people. But it does, you know, have to take multiple components, right? Like the nutrition piece is key, but the, you know, understanding how to do strength training and do it correctly, working, you know, maybe with a professional first is key to learn how to do that well. Having a community is critical. Practicing stress management is critical. Like, all these things have an impact on our health and on our weight. And so I think there's definitely no silver bullet for it, but hopefully this conversation has brought light to the fact that it's, you know, we're all in this together, you know, going through, I would say, what is a shared but also beautiful struggle, sometimes frustrating but beautiful struggle around how to take best care of ourselves in a difficult environment. And it's obviously been a difficult time, particularly in this past year, to really hone in on it. And so what I wanted to do as just a closing